being allowed to fail. That's Simon Sinek, fail forward. So yeah, you fail, but then you move on. Well, imagine a world without computers today. Let's stop all the computers. The world goes at war immediately. You're losing all your money. You don't hide your money under your mattress anymore. So it's in the bank. And by the way, in the bank, it's just a number. Keep curiosity very high. Question everything, believe nothing. It's my motto these days.
Marc, welcome.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure.
It's an absolute pleasure. As you know, I heard you talk at the TEDx talk organized by Middlesex University, and I was fascinated by your talk. It was a tough topic. Innovation is always a tricky subject because there's so much to say, and at the same time, there's so little we know. And one of the main reasons why I wanted to invite you on this podcast is that reading up about you, it seems like you've had many lives. You're a creator, you're an entrepreneur, you used to be CTO of Microsoft for Sub-Saharan Africa, you teach, you're a public speaker, so many hats. Do you have a favorite hat?
I would say the red one, but I'm not sure I've got a favorite hat per se. I think that's the idea is I'm somebody who is very curious about many topics. And at the same time, I get bored very quickly. So I need to rejuvenate, I would say, my curiosity by exploring multiple topics. So probably the most preferred hat, or I would say my most comfortable one, is something around technology. I'm a geek by heart. I fell into computers when they were barely something, these ZX81, an Amstrad machine back in time. So it was my first computer a long time ago. Really fond of technology, not for the sake of technology per se, but for the sake of what it can do.
So when you fell into the technology in I hope I'm not offending you by saying early 80s?
Yeah? Something like that.
Sounds about right. Could you have anticipated that the world would look like it does today?
No, I don't think. I think that back in time, computer was it was a fascinating object. And when you think basically from the 80s to the 90s, so we had fascinating technology. So the IBM PC came in, then the Macintosh was, flabbergasted by its capabilities. And so it was a constant renewal. And the thing is that you never get bored basically with that thing, because it's always keep, changing and evolving. And I remember when I was doing my engineering studies, during my studies, actually the school moved from having a mainframe, which was a big computer, to workstations, graphical workstation. And that was incredible, because we moved in a matter of 3 years to, green, black screens to multiple colors. And that was, wow. And it says, if we can do that in 3 years, what we'll be able to do in, 20 or 30 years. But back in the 90s, I would say early 90s, when I finished my engineering studies, I could never have thought that, what internet would become, what metaverse was not even the word. Yeah. So yeah, that's just fascinating as well.
And how was your experience working for a humongous organization like Microsoft? I guess it was exciting, but at the same time, I'm sure it came with its own challenges as well, keeping a pace with if you could summarize it in, I'm not going to say one word, but...
Yeah, well, I think that's working for a tech giant is, when you love technology, it's just the place to be. So, and I had the privilege to run the Office division, which was the Office business, the Microsoft Office and all the other software that linked to Office, SharePoint and others. And so by leading that particular division, so I was aware of what's cooking and what's going to happen. And I lived at the time where, I had the privilege to launch as well Office 365 across Africa. And so that was basically, we knew what was going to happen in 2 years, 3 years down the line. So you're peeping Tom into the future. So it's kind of, wow, that's pretty cool. On the other benefits is that Africa at that time, and the region, the Indian Ocean Islands and the African region, was pretty small for Microsoft.
Right.
Okay, there still are. There's pretty small region, even though, of course, when you add up all the different countries, North Africa,
yeah.
South Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa, Egypt, becomes quite a substantive, big company. But that time we were pretty small, so it was an SME within a giant. So not really red tape, basically freedom. The land of opportunity, basically.
Yeah, so you had that certain, ironically, a certain agility within a giant.
But that's something which is extraordinary with tech companies, and I think that Microsoft is not the only one. I think when you look at the tech industry overall, it's agility. So being able to flip the company on its head almost in a couple of years, what you can do when you're a very small company. But when you need to move 100,000 people, that's a different paradigm shift. But that's the capabilities that, if you look at what Satya Nadella has done on Microsoft over a couple of years, 10 years now, he's been at the helm, it's just incredible. So, and so this is as well, I think the mindset of this industry is, well, we know that we don't have to run, we have to run permanently. Which is tiring sometimes.
Yes, I can imagine. And I'm sure a lot of travel was involved as well.
my CO2 footprint is very bad.
Yes, especially with, at the time, it's slightly better now, but it's still problematic. Being based in Mauritius and traveling throughout Africa, it comes with its own challenges in terms of connectivity.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, traveling from, any place in Africa to another place in Africa is, you need to commute. I think that we had to commute through, and Emirates was not as good as it is now, but it was through Johannesburg mostly. And when I was going to West Africa, it was through Paris.
Paris, yeah. I always find that fascinating. You go all the way up and then you have to come down again. Wow.
But it's coming better. And again, Africa has been developing very fast. So over the years, it was easier either to go through Nairobi or Addis, for example. So,
sure.
Yeah.
And I heard you say, I think it was in an interview last year or the year before, but quite recently, that with the speed in which technology is advancing, especially in the fields of AI, ChatGPT, and all these new technologies, Mauritius has to keep up, and I'm not sure it's keeping up, or rather, we're not tapping into the full potential of everything that these new technologies have to offer.
Well, I'm not sure it's Mauritius alone. I think overall, there are two things. And you probably know the hype cycle, the curve by Gartner. So where everybody's hype, and everybody's excited by any new technology comes with this excitement around it. And so I think that with ChatGPT and generative AI overall, I think that we just went to the tip of it. A lot of people disagree with what I'm saying. I think that they say, no, the hype is not over. I think the hype is over in a way because, I think that we know what technology is capable of, and we know what that particular technology is capable of. Yeah, we can improve it, but it will be marginal improvements.
Right.
And so we're going down. But at the same time, so that's the hype cycle. At the same time, what we need to realize is that every technology, irrespective of the technology and the excitement around it, is what I call a long tail technology, meaning that it takes time really to permeate every industry, every countries. And so if you look at internet, for example, which we generally I make the comparison. Internet was starting really early in the 90s, mostly in the US. It started slowly, and then we had the internet bubble in the 99, 2000, where everything exploded, companies went bankrupt, and then started again. And then it really went mature completely just after the financial crisis, 2008. So in 2010 was basically, cloud is everywhere. And so it took basically 20 years, really to completely be widespread. And I don't say that it's going to take 20 years for generative AI because AI has been there for a while, but it will take quite a substantial amount of time. So Mauritius is not badly positioned, not more than many other countries, let's face it, reality. But at the same time, sometimes we need to pedal a little bit faster. And companies, I'm pretty sure that there are some early investors in that space that will reap the benefits faster than others. But technology is technology. It will take time, so I'm not too worried. There's all this we tend to look at this early adopters at the beginning. The guys who are really vocal about, you need to do that, you need to do this. Probably, being wiser with age says, I'm still there. Yeah. But for people says, let's look at what you can do with technology. And that's why I said I love technology, not for technology per se, but for what it can do. And therefore, you need to think in terms of use cases, what are the benefits for my company, what are the risks as well, because there are many, many risks. Well, it's prone to errors, those famous hallucinations. So you need to think a little bit. But Mauritius, no, I think that we can, and I think that we have made ways, actually. The country in itself, so having the Mauritius Emerging Technology Council, for example, it drives some agenda there as well to move companies and the government as well. So I think we're making progress.
Again, I don't think this is particular to Mauritius, but perhaps being a small island, perhaps we feel it more here. Do you think there's also a sort of emotional resistance to change as well? The reason I ask that is specifically in relation to jobs that may disappear. So I'm thinking accountant, lawyer, what have you. So do you think that there's also this sort of emotional resistance to, I read somewhere, I don't know whether it's a myth or reality, but per square kilometer, I think Mauritius has the most number of accountants in the world or something crazy like that.
Yeah, probably.
So do you think that also might be a factor to sort of resistance to change?
Probably. I think change is difficult. Change is difficult. Change scares people. And I think that we need to be recognizing the fact that it takes time to change a mindset, of the whole population. And if you just look, so I'm, as you said, I'm teaching artificial intelligence, for example, at Curtin University. So here, and the thing is that that's the first time actually we have in the master's degree a course specifically on AI. So AI has been there for 20 years. Why do we start now? So it takes time, and University of Mauritius is doing the same thing, University of Mascarene is doing the same thing, so University of Mascarene started a little bit earlier. But it takes time to transform a cohort of students to those specific areas. And as you know, people in Mauritius, either you're an accountant, a lawyer, or a doctor, exactly. Which are really the careers that you need to embrace. Yeah, it's going to be impacted a lot. And I think that junior accountants, junior lawyers have worries somehow, but at the same time I think that like any technology, it will disrupt, it will change stuff, it will change jobs. Will we need accountants? Probably yes, because we need some oversight, yes. Human oversight, machines, and particularly, that's why the hype around ChatGPT and the likes are sometimes over promising. It's still mathematical and statistical matrices, and they're just making statistical decisions without understanding the full context. I know that a lot of people say, yeah, but they are making extraordinary decision or extraordinary progress. True, but should I 100% trust those tools? No, never. Because there is always a possibility that there is a mistake that you cannot explain. Explainability is a big issue, and you're a lawyer and you know that. When you plead a case, so it's just, well, we need to understand what happened. Sure. Okay, and you need to understand why that decision has been made. Sometimes it has been made in full consciousness. Sometimes it's hidden decisions or whatsoever. But we need to come up with an explanation. With those tools, mostly today, we can't explain. Yeah. We don't even understand and it's not that we don't understand. It's that we cannot understand. Where you have a model that you have, when they say they have 75 or 100 billion parameters. It's basically 100 billion possibilities in the decision. Being able to explain 100 billion possibilities, I don't know how to do that, and nobody knows how to do that. So it's complex, and so we are living in a world where we cannot really explain what machines are doing. And so how do you reconcile humans and machines?
Yeah, and they're doing it so quickly, they are able to produce things in a matter of seconds that would take us millions of years to achieve the same thing. So, yeah. And also you were talking about errors. That I remember there was this famous case, I believe it was in the US, where the lawyers were fined because they used ChatGPT and quoted cases that didn't exist. Yeah. And I'm sure this could happen in other areas as well. I always tell my colleagues, I personally don't use it. Maybe I should. I don't know. I've never used ChatGPT, but it's not. I'm not against it per se. But as you say, I think if you have to. I'm of the school of thought that once you master your subject and you're comfortable with it and you understand it, then yes, use it as a tool to help you, rather than let it do all the work and you're not adding actually any value. But does it scare you at all? I mean, the reason I say scare is because obviously we see, it's obviously fiction, but we see a lot of dystopian, movies and all of that. Does it ever come across your mind that we could end up in a world where actually the machines are thinking for us?
It's already the case. It's already the case. So, I tell my students, and sometimes when I'm doing corporate training, says, well, imagine a world without computers today. Let's stop all the computers. The world goes at war immediately. You're losing all your money. You don't hide your money under your mattress anymore. So it's in the bank. And by the way, in the bank, it's just a number. If that number disappears, your money disappears. Yes. And you cannot do a lot of things. Even your identity will disappear because it's generally a number in the database somewhere. So machines are already deciding for us one way or another. Something that very few people realize. And I said, and you can do the test. You work with a friend or your husband or whoever, sit together next to each other, take your computers, 2 different computers, log into them, go to google.com, and try typing the same word. The beauty is that the autocomplete will be different. The results will be different. Wow. Why?
Even the results?
Yeah. Why would it be different? Because the machine knows who you are, because it has mapped all your go back and forth on what you've done on internet over the years, on your computer over the years. So it has created a map of who you are. And that's AI. And the AI would provide the results that cater to your interest. Wow. And so therefore you will have different things. Same thing on Amazon. Look for the same product. You will have recommendations, that other customers have purchased those products. Those products will be different. Wow. For the same request. Why? Because it has mapped your preferences. So, and that's AI. Same thing, feed on LinkedIn, feed on Facebook are different. So it's already there. It's already making decisions without us knowing about it. Yeah. So am I scared? I think that the only thing that scares me is maybe, unfortunately, one point in the future where they decide to leave lethal weapon fully autonomous. You may say, well, a car is a lethal weapon. Well, and they're autonomous now, but they are not designed to kill. Autonomous weapons are designed to kill, so it's just concerning a little bit. But beyond that, no, I think that we're heading towards something which is quite fascinating.
We have to sort of embrace it, I guess.
I think that we have to embrace it, but I think that we have to live and to learn how to use them. To me, what's not scares me, but what I find sometimes amazing is that, well, few people would think to hop into a car without learning how to drive, okay? Particularly a manual gear car. So if you're not taught how to drive that car, it will be difficult. Now, you put ChatGPT or whatever AI tool into the hands of anyone, and they think they're gonna be able to interrogate and query and get results and make decisions with that tool. And it's not that easy, because the way you're asking the question will influence the answer. Of course. And so that's why I think that we need to rethink the way we work, the way we interact with the machine. There is something which I say to even my wife sometimes says, well, don't be afraid. If you don't know how to do something, try. What will happen? Well, maybe you lose a file, okay, but you've made backups, so you've made provisions for problems. Just try and learn. And that's the way that technology is fantastic, particularly in 2024. You can learn almost anything. Yes,
languages and anything, as you said, yeah.
So just do it, like Nike says.
We had Laurent last week talk about marketing, and we spoke a lot about Nike. I'd like to link that with the future, which is our children. Oof. It's a tall order. It's a tough area. I guess the first question I had is, based on your experience, do you think all children would benefit in this day and age from learning programming at an early age, or actually, nah, that it's much of a muchness, and it's only if they're interested in that area that
machines know how to program themselves better than we do. And that was funny because last year my son, who was doing his engineering degree, called me and says, "Dad, I got a problem. I need to program that thing. Can you help me?" And says, "I'm terribly sorry because I don't learn that particular language. Okay, I've never taught that language. It's a brand new one, so I cannot help on that thing. But I got a good friend who knows how to do that, and we use ChatGPT actually."
Did you?
Yeah, I used it because what I know is how to program a machine. That's fine. I know many languages, and that was kind of okay. So I said, okay, let's do the flow of the programming, and then we'll ask ChatGPT to really program it by itself. And it took us 4 or 5 hours basically to complete the whole thing, the whole assignment, that I think would have probably taken a week in my time. And so that's massive. So should we teach kids to program? I think that we need to teach kids the logic, the computing logic, which is important. Yes, we can do very simple things and, using a simple language just to make them understand what the language does vis-a-vis the interface or the computing logic. But I think which is much more important is to understand how the machine thinks, because machines are made by humans. Humans and mostly engineers are designing those things, and they have a way to think. They have a very specific way to think. And when you think about the fact that the computer we have today, whether it's a Mac or PC, its structure has been designed in the 60s. And it has not changed since then. It has become more powerful.
Sure.
That's for sure. It goes faster. It stores more. But it's the same architecture. And lots of people have tried to change the architecture, but have never really succeeded for many reasons. And I think that the way that I was taught computing in the 80s is exactly the same.
The basics are still
exactly
valid
the same
now.
as we're teaching students these days. So I think that we need to teach those kids to how computers, or the logic of the computers, because they will interface that better. One thing which is a myth, by the way, is that these millennials are better than anybody else at computing. No, they're better at Facebook. Let's call a spade a spade. No, there are many studies that shows that they're better at Facebooking or TikToking or whatsoever, but now place them in front of a programming language and say, let's create a program to do that, or just create a web page. And they will be clueless. And they're clueless because it's very easy to swipe. It's very easy to create a video and upload that on TikTok. Very easy. Beyond that, well, it's much more difficult. And so, that's the thing that's a myth, that people think millennials are better. No, they're not better. They're just a little bit more curious, and because it's easy, and it's designed to be addictive.
Yes, and actually that leads me to my next question, which is not so much about the addiction, although I think we all agree that we're all to some extent addicted, most of us. It's about the dumbing down. That's what worries me the most. And I don't mean that in a pejorative way, but when I look at my kids, for example, I read a post recently on LinkedIn, of course, that said that someone had bought exactly the same book that they read when they were younger, a children's book, I think it was Enid Blyton or something like that. Exactly the same book, and the words were different. The words were simpler, dumber to some extent. And that is what worries me about. I've got young children, and already I see, I'm not saying they should read the material that I read, but whereas I was reading Le Petit Prince, they're reading stuff that needs to have some sort of images in them, and the words they're good words, they're learning new words, but I think that is what worries me about technology. Is this something that you think is a valid concern, or do you think that it's freeing up our time to do other things, but actually we just end up scrolling up and down anyway?
Yeah, well, I got an opinion. I don't have an expert voice in that. My opinion is, I think, the same as yours. It feels like I think that we are pulling children to a bottom race. Actually, my worry around that is not really that race to the bottom. It's the fact that we are creating a gap which is wider and wider. People that have been educated, that are postgrads, even bachelor or a master's degree, understand that, well, we need to think, we need to read, we need to stop scrolling, And so those are the people who will avoid TV, that will push kids to read, that will bring those kids to countries, to museums, and so developing the mind in a different way. And that schools, there's tendency to bring people down. And so we're widening the gaps as well. The average is going down and the elite are still there. And so that's what really worries me, is that we are widening the gap instead of saying, hey, you know what? Everybody has the power to do something different. If you haven't seen that, you need to watch, and I use that in one of my trainings, Sir Ken Robinson, Tech Talk in 2008 or something like that.
The one about schools. But he's done several, but
yeah,
there's
he's done
one
several,
in
but this
particular
is the
fantastic.
it's one of the most viewed Tech Talks, 100 million views.
Yes, I have watched it.
And when he talked about ADHD, and so we're talking 1930s, and ADHD has not been invented. You know, it was not something that you can have because it was not existing. And he explained that there is not one form of intelligence, and there are many, many different forms of intelligence. And I truly think that school brings just people, well, if you don't behave and you're not quiet, you won't succeed. But why, if I just want to play guitar or dance or paint or do something else? And maybe we should look at schooling slightly differently. And that's why I think that people tend to go to screens. Well, it's easy and it's, again, addictive. Unfortunately, I think that there is a big challenge there. But yeah, I think that the level of kids are going down. But again, I was quite surprised. You know, I have one group of students in a master's degree this year, and I told my wife, actually, it was, I've got really great guys in their 20s.
So they're curious, they're
Muslim Mauritians,
they ask questions.
Muslim Mauritians. So I got 2 Zimbabweans, 1 Indian, and 7 Mauritians. And I'm very happy, you know, to see curious people who have a good know-how, who are willing to learn, asking questions, and it says, well, you know, the world is not lost completely. You still have hope.
Yeah.
But I think there's still, well, the gap is widening, unfortunately. That's my gut feeling.
Yeah. And do you think that, based on what you've said, that, you know, and I'm not talking about Mauritius in particular, I'm talking worldwide, that the way we view education fundamentally should change? Yeah.
It should change. I think that one point that you were mentioning about, well, the fact that maybe they changed the words, or, you know, you were reading Saint-Exupéry at one age, and then now they're just reading Enid Blyton, you know, at the same age as well. I think that, to me, it's going back to critical thinking and the way to approach life. And when I'm giving AI courses, says, what I'm going to say in the next 2-3 hours, don't believe anything. Question everything.
Really?
Because anyway, what I'm saying today may be different tomorrow, not tomorrow, but in a week or 2 weeks' time. So, and I think that the fact that to question everything, to me, is very important. And it's not questioning about saying, well, this is wrong. It's just about, wow, that's interesting. But is this the truth? Or is it the truth that somebody wants me to believe? And we've seen that in the political field. Okay. Well, now fake news and Twitter, my gosh. So under the freedom of expression, we are now throwing hate and
anything
goes. Yeah. And to me, that's not freedom of expression. Freedom of expression is, I want to say something respectfully, okay, and I accept that you question what I'm saying. And to me, that's the Socratic, basically, discussion with somebody. And I think, to me, that's important. And actually, I was another video I saw a while back, and I'm using in some of my courses. Is, I think that was don't remember his name, but anyway, he was telling, when you want to start a discussion with somebody, it says, I don't understand. Can you explain? And I'm using that with my son. And sometimes when he tries to push a little bit too far, it says, yes. I don't understand. Can you explain? And you ask, I don't understand. Can you explain? 2 or 3 times. And people get frustrated. Why? Why don't you understanding?
It's so simple.
Are you understanding what I'm talking about? No, I don't think I get your point of view. Can you explain? And that forces the person to think.
And perhaps to question themselves.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
And that's, the US are doing that. The US schooling system is doing that a lot in debates, for example. Even, in primary school, trying to learn people to debate, to disagree. Just asking and questioning, I disagree with you. Now, if you disagree, people are just, yeah, you're bad, you're using bad words.
Yeah.
Well, we agree to disagree.
Yeah.
Let's be respectful to each other.
Yeah. And I think that, yeah, there's this whole different world online because, I think, people can hide behind their keyboards. That's why they're called keyboard warriors.
Yeah.
But I think as a double-edged sword to the problematic when we're talking about children, one thing that I do see in my kids, and I think is it Gen Alpha, the latest generation? I think they're called Gen Alpha, is that unlike in the 60s, 70s, even when I was growing up, where children were to be seen and not heard, I think children do challenge now. And I like that. I like the fact that they are able to challenge me and question me. And I think that's the flip side, the positive side of the evolution. Another question I had for you is that I've seen, this is another hat, nothing to do with technology, although perhaps to do with technology. It's your hat as a public speaker, champion in the public speaking. Why this? How did that develop, this passion for public speaking?
I was talking about art and Ken Robinson. If I had the choice, if I had to change one thing about my life, I would probably have been an actor.
Really? Oh wow!
I would probably have been a bad one, but that's fine. I was when I was in secondary school, in high school, I was part of the theater club, and so I started. Well, I was acting for schools, and so we had a couple of plays, and I was really enjoying that. Playing other characters, and earlier in my career, I took some acting courses as well and public speaking courses with an actress from the Comédie Française, which is very great memories so far. And so, if I did not embrace the engineering studies, I would probably have jumped, but that was not in my parents' mind. So
Did you try to convince them that?
No,
no,
I don't.
Didn't enter your field.
It did not even cross my mind. I think it was too late. Then I enjoyed because, and I think that they did not push me, but they had a lot of friends in the movie and television industry. Right. So that's, even as a kid, I was on a TV set. So,
that's amazing.
And the only way, I would say, the corporate way to acting is public speaking. What was early 2000, I just read a book and it was talking about Toastmasters. And so that's interesting. I never heard about this group of people. I looked online, it was 2005 or 6, found there was a couple of clubs in Mauritius. It was interesting, and there was a Port Louis club. Sent an email to the guy who was, it was an Australian actually, based in Mauritius, who was leading the club at that time. Says, Marc, blah, blah, blah. I say, hey, I come to the club, and I joined the organization at that time, spent quite a lot of time, not as active as I were. And I think it's good for a corporate environment, to know how to speak in public. So for me, it was a way, because I was doing a lot of presentations as well at Microsoft. So it's a way to not only act, but on top of that, to get better at, debating, explaining things, taking some different roles as well, and how to set up meetings and stuff like that. So it's just still a passion. If I were to start again, I would probably go in acting.
I didn't know that background. Obviously I've heard you speak in public. I just wondered where that fit, and that makes perfect sense now.
And when I was a kid, I loved actually, and I remember, and my parents still remember, that I was at each and every family gatherings, I was always saying, ask Marc to tell a joke, and I was imitating people. Really? So I can still, if I want to speak like that and I can do my French accent, I can do the French accent. But I also can speak like a German if you want. This is completely different, and that will be a different interview, but I can do that as well. So, and I can change my voice, very easily.
So you did that even as a kid. So you weren't, because a lot of actors, I'm asking that because that's something my daughter is interested in. A lot of actors tend to be quite shy. You weren't shy as a kid.
I was completely shy. Like,
really?
You could never, and still my wife is still joking about that. She says, when you want to ask somebody, things like, I can get lost driving for hours without asking where I'm going. Proud, I'm a man, I know where I'm going. Actually, I'm not proud, I'm just shy like hell to ask my way. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but no, I was shy as hell.
So was that a way of kind of, when you put yourself in someone else's skin, you kind of forget about the shyness
Probably.
of that? Yeah.
Probably.
Okay, because my daughter is quite shy, so I was like, actually, you know, a lot of actors are quite shy. So, yeah.
But I think that when you go on stage, you are not playing yourself. You're playing somebody else's character, and so you just enter the skin of somebody else. Yes. And it's true that it's always scary because people will look at you, will have an opinion about what you're doing. But at the same time, I think that you just forget that you're just, and that's why I think that it's called a play. and it's the game. It's just a game. And I met many actors, and when I was a kid, so I met a lot of guys, and they always fascinated when I was having discussions with those people because they were really playing. And that's in the sense of, it's a game. We're just playing it.
And then there are method actors as well. So they like completely enter, they become the character. I find that fascinating as well. The other hat that you have so many, we won't get through all of them today. Writing. You've written what, 20 books?
I stopped counting. 28.
Do you enjoy it, or is that I'm sure you enjoy it, but is that a process for you? So you have so much knowledge that you've acquired over the years.
It's funny. I wrote my first book, it was 25, 26. And it was just because I was doing a job, and I think that, and I was training at that time, you know, starting the first computer training at that time in the corporate world. And I always found that, well, people are not setting up the room the right way, they're not developing the curriculum the right way, and I had my ideas around that. So I said, I need to put all my ideas into something. So I started to gather all my ideas and says, well, that could be a book. And I wrote that book, and I sent it to a publisher, and to my surprise, I was published. I says, wow, that's easy. and I started like that. But over the years, it's actually a way to learn. So I'm not the typical writer that writes about what he knows, but I'm writing to learn more. I know, I got a good knowledge, but writing a book to a good level, you need to increase and to deepen your knowledge. And so to me, that's a way to force myself into learning mode. And sometimes it's painful. Let's call a spade, because you have delayed, you have dates to respect and stuff. So, but to me, it's really a way to get better. And I think and I compare that to teaching and to lecturing. So now I'm lecturing, for example, 2 courses, one on data management and one on artificial intelligence. The data management course is something that I've been doing for 30 years, so it's very easy. AI is a little bit tricky because it's quite new and there are multiple facets, which I'm sometimes, you know, when compliance ethics, for example, I'm not really comfortable. But that forces me to just read, to deepen my knowledge. So it's a way for me to learn more than anything else. Because honestly, when you write a book in the technical field, you never become a millionaire. It's just it does
because the market is quite small and
market
niche.
Is very small. Shelf life is short as well. So, but to me, it's much more a way of getting. And I think that particularly in my field, so I think of books as first a teaching or a learning mechanism, and then a marketing thing. It's just says, well, this is the book I wrote. Okay, so you know a little bit.
And I guess, like, you know, as part of the theme of, you know, building knowledge and passing on knowledge, I think this is probably linked to, and that's the last hat we will mention for today. We'll probably have to come another day to talk about the other remaining hats. Your role as, you know, helping young startups grow.
Yeah.
I think you're still actively involved in Turbine and, you know, angel investing. So what is the raison d'être of you deciding to help young founders, young entrepreneurs?
I think that's like many things in life. I never thought about it until I bumped into Turbine and Jan, 5 years ago?
Okay.
Because when I left Microsoft, said what I'm going to do. So I'm not going to not do anything. So I'm going to set up another company. So I don't want to go in corporate anymore. So I said, let's go back to entrepreneurs. And so I ended up at Turbine, was next to ENL House at that time, and met the guys and then started, and Jan says, do you want to help us? Why not? You know, I'm just there. don't have a lot of work for the moment, so let's do that. And then I started to meet a couple of young guys, and first that was just, wow, that's crazy, 21-year-old just want to create something and create a company and make a dent in the world, and I love that. And so I said, yeah, I can help, got some knowledge, some experience, be willing to help. And by starting to work with those young entrepreneurs, found that, well, they needed money, said, well, that's cool, but I may have a little bit of money, but I don't know how to invest. So learn business angel investing as well. So part of the African Angel Academy, met my co-founders and discovered a whole new world, which was, angel investing and startups and the whole thing. That it was fascinating. So it's, wow, there are people that and it says, well, this is Silicon Valley and the Indian Ocean Islands.
Yes, amazing. And Africa, yeah.
and COVID hits. It was, oh my gosh. But what was really, really great, and I still have very good friends, young guys, they're just, this level of energy, willingness, resilience. It's just, that's cool. I was invited, well, actually just announced that this morning, so brand new. I was invited to judge EcoBank FinTech Challenge in Togo. So we'll be there in September.
Amazing.
And it's just fascinating to see that, how many young African entrepreneurs as well can try to change the world. Simple as that. I'm working with a San Francisco-based company as well in Web3. A bunch of young guys. He's half Vietnamese, half US, half American. I love those. This vision and curiosity on the world, which was mine 30 years ago, which I think still is mine today.
I'm sure. And also what I love with that is that, I grew up in an age where when I looked at my parents and my grandparents, it was, given the socio-economic background of Mauritius at the time, and I think for a lot of other countries as well, the aim was to get one stable job for the rest, for your entire life. I think now the average is 5, if you're lucky, 5 years. So what the flip side to it, we can be very critical, I think, sometimes very harsh of Gen Z, but I think what they have is that perhaps what the Gen X and baby boomers didn't have is that they have this, as you said, this resilience, this entrepreneurial spirit that says, okay, we'll try, we'll fail, it's okay to fail, we'll try again.
Yeah, that's it's okay to fail, which is a message I love. Is very difficult in the corporate environment. You're not allowed to fail. Yeah, school has not taught you to fail.
Yes.
You need to succeed.
Yes.
If you fail, you have a bad grade, and it's still very prevalent into those environments. Even in a university environment, the grades is the grade. So you need to do this that way and this way, and sometimes I feel, at odds with that. Says, well, you know what? No, cut the corner. So, being allowed to fail, that's Simon Sinek, fail forward. So yeah, you fail, but then you move on. It's just...
Yeah, and you've learned a lesson that you can use for the next one. Yeah. What would be your mot de la fin for a young, not necessarily entrepreneur, it could be someone entering into the corporate world, looking at, how innovation can help them be a better version of themselves? What would you say to them?
Well, to me, I would say the first thing is keep curiosity very high. Question everything, believe nothing. It's my motto these days. But I think it's trying to innovation. Don't think innovation in terms of technology. Technology is a byproduct, or it's a tool that it can be used, but it's not the end in itself. It's just the fact that innovation can be anywhere. It can be, we tend to think in business models and business process. Sometimes it's simple things. So look into simplicity. I'm trying to embrace as well this notion of simplicity and even minimalism. So we're talking about Saint-Exupéry. So with Saint-Exupéry, who says that the best design is not when you add stuff, is when you cannot remove anything else. That's the best design. And I think that's trying to look into that. Can we simplify the world we're living in? Can we change? Can we shake that corporate rigidity sometimes? And so I think that to me, it's to be a voice of change. And to be a voice of change, you need to think laterally. sometimes.
Thank you so much, Marc.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure.